Hello my lovely, and welcome to the final episode of this series of the Mother Gaia Birthy Pod. And what a way to end. This is the last part of my conversation with the brilliant Nichole Hamic. And we're diving deep into the raw, painful reality of women's rights in 2025. We pick up mid-conversation, right in the thick of it, talking about how misogyny is so insidiously drip-fed into our lives that even the most well-meaning people don't always realise what they're saying. From there, we pull no punches as we tackle the state of feminism today, the ongoing battle for women's autonomy, and the absolute devastation of reproductive rights now that Trump is back in power. We circle back to The Handmaid's Tale, a piece of fiction that feels less and less like dystopia and more like a warning we didn't heed. This episode is powerful, unfiltered, and honestly infuriating, but it's also a call to arms. We have to keep speaking up, standing together, and refusing to let our rights be stripped away. So grab a cuppa or something stronger and take a deep breath, and let's get on with it. It filters in little drips and drops that you don't necessarily always notice it. And it feeds in it just becomes, and it's one thing after another. And unless you take a step back or you're recognizing what people are saying or how they're acting or things that are going on. I mean, even in the last couple of months, I've had someone say to me, it's so, if you take it out of context, it means absolutely nothing. But when you actually look at it, you go, that's just the beginnings of it. We were literally having a conversation about Christmas decorations. Right? Okay. It sounds wild, right? But stick with me, right?
Yeah, I'm here for the story.
Having a conversation about Christmas decorations. And I was having a conversation with a male, I'm going to say colleague because it's not a colleague and I don't want to get into it. So I was having a conversation with a male colleague and I was saying how I normally wait until the 1st of December, I put my Christmas decorations up and they stay up until the 6th of January because, you know, that's traditional, blah, 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 blah. It's also the day after my birthday, so I don't have to put up different decorations. Right? I'm lazy like that. It does me right the way through for the entirety of it. It's brilliant, right?
Love it.
And he turned around and said, well, there's no arguing with women's logic. Right? Well, I just kind of looked at him and went, what? And he went, well, only a woman could come up with logic like that about when to put up decorations and put them down in this side. It's like, that's not woman's logic. It's just a logic. It's just, we've got kids who like to have the decorations up. We've got Christmas, we've got New Year, we've got my mum and dad's blooming wedding anniversary, New Year and my birthday. I ain't putting up 27 sets of different decorations. That's just how our family does it. That's our tradition. I put up one set and I take it down. End of. That's just logical. It's not woman's logic. And then he goes, well, I told you, a woman's logic, there's no arguing with them either. But what do you then say to that? Because if then you try and put them right, there's no arguing with women, is there? And it's like, well, come on.
I saw something brilliant the other day, and I think I was on Threads, and somebody who was talking about like having conversations like that, specifically with men, right? Is to like not even try to argue with them, just to go, ew.
Yeah, right. There's another one I've heard. It's like,
that's weird.
Yeah, that's a really weird thing to say out loud.
Yeah, ew, that's really weird that you said that.
Yeah.
And then just like leave it, like just drop it. Yeah. Because you're right. You can't, and what do you say to that? What do you argue? You can't argue. Like, hey, you're just being an idiot. Like you're just like spewing misogyny.
Yeah. And it is that undertone of misogynistic and sexist, but they don't even realize that because it's being drip fed to them in little bits.
Yeah.
They don't realize what it is that they're saying. They don't realize that it's wrong, basically. And it's like, well, hello, equality much? I don't think so.
Right. And I think from now on, that's just how I'm going to respond.
Yeah.
Just like, ew, that was weird that you said that.
Well, I've even noticed from like the other side of it. So I mean, obviously that's a sexist female to male thing.
Yeah.
I've noticed this in like religious stuff.
Sure.
So my child attends a mainstream, non-religious based school. It's come up to Christmas. So they've literally had hammered into them the Christian version of Christmas, of Jesus being born, blah, 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 blah. They were going on some trip and I didn't want him to go on it, but I didn't have the choice to decline it. I had to tick a box on a form to say that I consented him to leave the school premises. So when I didn't tick the form, I got text messages, phone calls, blah, 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 you name it. They were literally, why haven't you ticked this box? Because I don't consent to him going and you didn't give me a do not consent. The school teacher then rang me and said, oh, you haven't consented to this. I said, well, because I don't. I said, if it was an RE lesson and they were being taught different versions of like what was going on over the winter for different religions and this, that, and that, I'd have absolutely no problem. I'm big on equality and letting people decide for themselves and being given the correct information for all the different things. And she went, well, that's all it is. It's an RE lesson. I went, so you're going to a mosque then? And she went, what do you mean? I said, well, you're taking them to a church to talk about Jesus and the birth of Jesus and this, that, and the other, and that's what they believe in Christianity. I said, are you taking them to a mosque? I said, are you taking them anywhere else? I said, are you talking about Diwali? What about the Festival of Lights? Or what about the winter solstice? Or blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I was like, what about all these other festivals that are happening over the winter? I said, the only one that you are telling them and literally braying into them is the Christian one.
Right.
So where is the RE in this? And that they didn't have back down. But it's those little things where you're thinking, actually, you're not supposed to be teaching this to them as this is the truth. You're supposed to be like, this is our religion that some people believe in. Here is the information. You can choose to believe in it or not.
Yeah.
But they're not doing that. And it's just like, oh, we started.
And yes. And like, and all I can say is like, I hope that like the UK and all the other places that aren't the US right now can wisen up, can look at the US and go, oh, shoot, like, you know, we've got the fucking 10, excuse my French, we've got the 10 commandments in schools in Oklahoma, right? We've got Texas just passed a law that like they have to teach the Bible in the schools. We've got, you know, I mean, it is like, and it blows me away. It absolutely boggles my mind, because if there's one thing that was like hammered into me in school, and like, and every single historical record on the face of the planet when it comes to the forming of the United States of America, was the idea of the separation between church and state. We did not want a theocracy. We did not want to have a national religion. We did not want, like, that was a big thing. And that fact that half of America is currently arguing that we are a Christian nation and we should be teaching Christianity in our public school system, like, makes me want to hurl all over the place. And because it's not just like, oh, we're teaching Christianity, it's like also like their version of it. Like, if I was a Christian, I'm not, but if I was, I would be upset. I'd be like, no, like, it's, I don't, like, that's my job, and that's my specific church's job, is to help my children understand my religion the way that I understand it, right? We won't get into the fact that I feel like that's all just brainwashing and grooming, but whatever. So, but, and so this idea, this concept that suddenly this should also be like, we're looking at a state religion that's going to tell us exactly how we have to like behave and run our schools and teach our children and all that sort of stuff, but we can't, like, it's really like, the more and more we look at it, the more I'm just like, yeah, Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, because it's that thing as well of like, well, which bit of that book are you taking? Because you are they are literally hand picking and cherry picking the bits that fit their
Well,
their
and the
narrative.
translations that fit their bit, like I follow Dan McClellan on Instagram. I think he's brilliant. He has spent his life basically as a researcher of the Bible, and listening to him talk about like a lot of the key talking points that like today's evangelical Christians like to like pretend are in the Bible. And he's just like, it's not there. There's no mention, the only mention of of abortion, if you will, because I think that's what we're here talking about, women's reproductive health, is a recipe of like how to do it and who should perform it, right? If you really want to know, like otherwise, there's nothing about abortion in the Bible.
No.
And Jews don't believe that life begins at conception. They are very firmly believe that like life begins at the first breath, right? And so it's like here we are, like even people who both use the same book, meaning like the Old Testament is technically right, they're cohesive book, disagree on that. And even just like the history of the evangelicals dragging abortion rights into their dogma in the 70s when we desegregated schools, strum up votes, is like, it's wild. Like this is a new concept. This is a nouveau concept for Christians to be like, oh, all abortion is bad. Like women's health care is bad. Doctors are bad. Science is bad.
Yeah, so where are we going? We've all been dragged to hell already, and that's it. Everything's bad. End of.
Yeah. And
I just want to take a quick pause here because we keep circling back to The Handmaid's Tale, and if you haven't read it yet, now is the time. Written by Margaret Atwood in 1985, this book is a chilling dystopian novel set in Gilead, a totalitarian society where women's rights, especially reproductive rights, have been completely stripped away. It follows Offred, a handmaid whose only purpose is to bear children for the ruling elite. Sound familiar? Yeah, well, that's why we keep bringing it up. It was meant to be a warning, not a roadmap. So if you want to grab a copy, I've linked it in the show notes through my Amazon affiliate account. It's one of those books that everyone should read, especially right now. All right, let's get back to it. So one of the other conversations that I'd had, like say, with my partner, because when we found out that obviously Trump had won and got into power and all the rest of it, and I was like, this is going to have ramifications. It's going to be bad in the US, but it is going to wave out. It's going to hit all of us in some way or another.
Absolutely.
And his answer to that, because I mean, I know he was trying to sort of like calm me down and go like, it's not the world isn't ending yet, kind of thing. But he said, well, at least this way he'll have this term and then he won't be able to be voted back in again. He's like, but the thing is, the stuff that they can put into place while he's there, it's gonna pass down generationally. So all of these other things that we've got, so like the dumbing down or the eradication of sex education within schools,
nearly not here regardless.
So if you're then telling the women not to talk about their reproductive systems and what they're doing, you're hushing them, you're silencing them, you're digging it underground. The girls are going to be in that situation where they're not getting told anything until it's happening to them because you're trying to keep them safe, but actually you're causing more problems and things like that. Men from a young age, when they're young boys, are going to have no idea that women's bodies are completely bloody different and do different things and this, that, and the other. Even if they have a vague understanding of it now, they're going to have even less understanding of it if we take away all the education. You're then hammering in all of these, like you said, these so-called Christian traditional values into all the young children. So by the time that they're growing up, and the ones that are going to go into politics and are going to be the next set of leaders are going to have these things instilled into them from such a young age. Just because it's not Trump in power doesn't mean it's not one of his followers.
Correct. Because Trump Trump is a disease. Like he's really more of a symptom of a disease is really what he is, right? And because if you look at who is really moving the parts, right? It's not Trump. He's an idiot, truly. Like,
yeah. Well, let's be fair, he is really, isn't he?
And he's senile, and he's like he is a symptom of a disease. But if you start to really pull apart the pieces and look at, especially now that he has like started to pick his cabinet, and it's this billionaire class, right? It's people like Peter Thiel who are funding this sort of thing. Elon Musk, who, again, is saying the quiet parts out loud recently. He's like, well, this is really just revenge on America for supporting like the anti-apartheid, movement in South Africa. And you're like, okay, okay.
Yeah, I can't believe he's a real human being sometimes.
Me neither. So, but here we are.
Yeah.
And again, these are all a symptom of a deeply seated disease that has run rampant and unchecked in the United States for a long time. Reading, even watching Shiny Happy People. I don't know if you have ever seen that, but it was a documentary about a rather famous family in the United States called the Duggars. They were the 20 had like the 21 children, sort of. That's that family. But that documentary not only goes into like the abuse within that family, but also the creation of this, and they believe it. I mean, they've created an army of young Christians and brought them up through their homeschooling programs designed to put them into politics, to seat their beliefs into American law and belief systems. And it's a worthy watch, but you might need some anti-nausea meds on board while you watch it. And it's things like that I think, as a person who, I've spent my entire life living in books. I'm a big reader. I've been a big reader my whole life. Anything I can get my hands on. That I've been able to, like, I guess, see the writing on the wall for a very long time, right? I read The Handmaid's Tale when I was in the 6th grade, 7th grade, I think 7th grade, in middle school for a book report for school.
We never had anything quite as nice as that. We had to try and translate Shakespeare, but there you go.
I mean, I definitely had that too. But because and what's so funny to me is we were allowed to pick our own book. You picked your own book, whatever. And I remember my English teacher that year just being like, well, that's an interesting choice for a 7th grader. And
sorry, just for my clarification, how old would you have been in 7th grade? Because we do ours differently.
What, 12? 13?
Fair enough. 13, so that's like 2nd year of comprehensive school here.
Yeah. And and then being like, where'd you get that book? And I was like, oh, my mom suggested it. And
what a good mom.
No, but what will blow your mind is the woman who raised me that way, who basically was like, women can do anything, strong, independent woman, like, you're gonna, all the things. Like, she like raised me to be a thinker and a feminist and to go after the things that I wanted in this life and all that sort of stuff. She is now a hardcore Trumper, QAnon, right-wing nut job. I think about my own personal like deconstruction through the years, right? And it very much started, I believe, well, I think from just a very young age and just being like, that doesn't make sense. But you know, reading The Handmaid's Tale and reading that book, and I go back to it, and it feels weird in my life to feel like I've come so far full circle. Like, wait, what? Why am I now? I'm living this book. Oh no, that I didn't mean that to happen. But you know, and seeing like how religion played a really big part in the oppression of people in that book, and that very much opened my eyes to and I was brought up Catholic, and Catholics are very like whatever, like we're old, we don't really have a lot of effort to put into like making people Catholic. Our job is just to kind of keep the current Catholics Catholic, and we're fine. So like there's not even like a really big like proselytizing arm of the Catholic Church, especially in America these days. So you know, unlike like evangelical Christianism or you know, things like that. But even just reading about that there really got me thinking and really got me going like, ooh, there's something dirty here. There's something wrong here. And then, you know, as I got older and I was reading more, again, historical fiction, but when I read historical fiction, I am also that ADHD girl who's going to like Google everything and like look at Wikipedia and you know, read, then like find a historical source, and I want to know all the things.
Yep.
You know, and reading about the treatment of women and the witch hunts, and reading about, you know, those sorts of things in the Middle Ages and the Dark Ages, and all of it was like, ew, I want no part of that. Right. And yes, like women like us will be the ones they come after first. Those of us who are going to continue to support women in making choices about their healthcare, who are going to be doing it to save lives.
Mm-hmm.
We are doing it to save lives. But they are already calling us witches. Mm-hmm. Right. And unironically, right, they called Kamala Harris a witch at one point. Right. And it's not on accident.
No.
If they can other all of the women, if they can other us, if they can other pick it, you know what I mean? And yeah, and it is like Wicked, right? And Wicked is really, you know, the Wicked Witch of the West, you know, Elphaba is she is the global other represented in that movie, and she is us. She is and it's a really hard, I'm tired of unprecedented times. I would like to go back to precedented times that I was promised when I was an early millennial.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff that we're talking about now wouldn't even have hit on my radar of things to be worried about when I was even early 20s. It was just a, yes, you can do this. Yes, you can do that. Yes, it's your body. Blah, 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 blah. You need a prescription for this. You just go and get it. There was nothing there that went, by the way, just take stock of what you've got and make sure you keep it, because in 20 years' time, you're going to be fighting for it.
Yeah. I think for me, the early, like when I started really seeing the writing on the wall was the beginning of what was called the Tea Party movement. And again, it probably didn't even hit the radar in the UK because it seemed at the time like everybody was like, oh, this is just fringe. This is just not something we need to worry about. I remember specifically talking to my parents about that. And I was like, this is concerning. And this is something that we have to be concerned about. And they just brushed it off. They're like, oh, this is nothing we need to be worried about. Right. And I remember starting to have those conversations with people. I think I was in college or just out of college. And everybody was like, oh no, like nothing's ever going to come of that. But those people and that movement it has what's turned into the full heart of the Republican Party in the United States now. And we have been gaslit and gaslit and gaslit. Oh, that's not a thing they're going to do. Oh, you don't have to worry about that. Oh, that's not a thing. Oh, blah, 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 blah. And then again, like I woke up this morning and there was 125 Republican House members pushing forward a total abortion ban with no exceptions for the health of the mother.
Yeah.
And I go, I have been screaming this into the void for 20 years, that this is coming and this is a problem.
And that's it, my lovely, the final episode of this series for the Mother Gaia Birthy Pod. And what a conversation to end on. You know, back in 2009, the Tea Party movement was dismissed as a fringe group, but look at where they are now. That ripple of extremism has grown into a full-blown tidal wave, and we are feeling the consequences, especially as women. Reproductive rights are under attack, bodily autonomy stripped away, and the rise of policies that would have seemed unthinkable just a decade ago. This isn't happening in some dystopian novel, it's happening right now in real time, and if we don't stand up, speak out and push back, it will only get worse. I want to give a massive thank you to Nichole, goddess, feminist, all-round badass, for joining me in this conversation. I love getting on my feminist soapbox with her, and I know this won't be the last time. And to every single guest who has joined me this series, I could not have made this podcast without you. Your stories, your wisdom, and your willingness to share have made this space what it is, and I am endlessly grateful. But most of all, thank you, my listeners. You are the reason I do this. Your support, your messages, your stories, you make this podcast what it is. Now, some big news. The Mother Gaia Birthy Pod is getting a shake-up. In Series 2, I won't be alone. I have a new co-host coming on board. That's right, there will now be 2 of us, for better or worse. And with that, we're having a little name change because we want to give you the space even more. So, welcome to Gaia's Village. And you, my lovely, are one of the villagers. We want this to be a true community where we answer your parenting questions from conception right through to early childhood, either from our own experiences or bringing in specialists who can. We'll be sharing our wins, our failures, and our unfiltered thoughts as both parents and experts in the birth world. And there's so much more to come. I'm taking a little break to get everything ready, but if you want to be involved, check out the show notes for all the details. This next series is going to be something special, and I cannot wait to have you all along for the ride. Until then, my lovely, thank you, and many, many blessings. Goodbye.